going. Panthers fans, the coaching search is now over. Head coach Frank Reich is now at the helm of the Carolina Panthers. Nick, I think this is a very good move for the Panthers, and we're going to get into that here in just a moment. But Panthers fans, before we tell you what we think, we want to hear what you think. Let us know what you think on Frank Reich's hiring, how he's going to benefit the team, and just the whole long-term plan. Does this fit into the Panthers' goals? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button. Any Panthers content that we push out will be sent directly to you. So you're going to not want to miss any of that. But Nick, this is a really great hire, I think, by the Panthers. Reich is a very good offensively quarterback-focused head coach. He's done a lot of work in the past. We'll get into, his credentials here in a minute. But I just want to know, first off, what are your thoughts on this hire, Nick? What do you think about Reich moving to Charlotte?
Yeah, so I think, like you alluded to, I think it's the perfect move to make. Obviously, Sean Payton was kind of the belle of the ball. Everyone was going for him. Payton ending up in Charlotte was not a high probability case. I'm sure the Panthers and Tepper maybe were kind of wondering if something like that could happen. It wasn't really going to happen, though, to be honest. So getting a guy like Reich into the fold is a smart move for just the reasons you alluded to. To win in today's NFL, you need an offensive-minded head coach. That's just the way it is. You look at 7 of the 8 teams that made it to the divisional round in 2022. All 7 of the 8 teams had an offensive-minded head coach. Only one, Sean McDermott of the Buffalo Bills, who just has Josh Allen, right? It's kind of a big advantage, is the only head coach that's defensive-minded. You need an offensive-minded guy. If you look at the 2 teams last year, minus with the biggest turnarounds, it was the New York Giants who brought in Brian Daboll, offensive-minded coach, quarterback guy, and the Doug Peterson with the Jacksonville Jaguars, obviously offensive-minded coach, quarterback guy. That is the formula. That is the recipe. And if you take it a step further, you want experienced coaches. You don't want the young guys anymore, right? The Sean McVay thing, those are kind of the exception to the rule. There's not a lot of Sean McVays out there. Ask Washington how Jay Gruden worked out, for example, right? There's a lot of young guys that flame out that don't work out at all. But here you go. You get an experienced guy, a guy who's been there before, right? Because if you look at who the Panthers came down to, according to reports, it was Kellen Moore, young guy out of Dallas, and it was Steve Wilkes, obviously the defensive-minded head coach or interim head coach that finished out the year. You don't want a defensive-minded head coach in today's NFL. You just don't, right? That's a recipe for failure. So moving away from Wilkes is a smart move. And you want an experienced guy, a guy who's been there before. Kellen Moore is obviously a younger guy, relatively new into the coaching profession. So going away from those 2 guys, nailing Frank Reich down, I think is the right move by Tepper in this Carolina Panthers organization.
Yeah, Nick, and let's focus on his history here for just a minute. Reich really did his best work as an offensive coordinator, especially in Indy. Worked with Manning for a little while. Worked in the early years of Andrew Luck. That was really good moves. Then you go on to his work in Philadelphia. When you get 2 offensive-minded guys, Peterson and Reich together, they win a Super Bowl. So, that's a pretty big year there as well. Going back to the Colts as the head coach, I think he brought out the best in Phillip Rivers, older Phillip Rivers, who was kind of like Dwayne and with the Chargers, moves over the Colts. And, he actually put up an okay season. If you look at the numbers that year, it wasn't too bad. So Reich has done a lot of really great work as offensive-minded guy. And really, if you're going to get a young quarterback, which I'm sure Panthers fans are tired of trying to pick up everybody's seconds and, go to the well and get these the misfit quarterbacks that aren't going to fit. So they either want to go after, a high caliber guy, which, that doesn't really seem like their plan. I think they're going to go through the draft and try to pick out the best young quarterback that they can. And Reich is the guy that you want to have, to mold a new young quarterback. And Nick, we don't want to forget that Reich actually was the first ever quarterback to throw a pass in a Carolina Panthers uniform. So there's a little bit of history there. He has ties to the Charlotte area. His family went to school there. His daughters went to school there. So that's all big news. It just seems like a really natural fit when you dig through all of the things that are going on there.
Yeah, especially when you look at his resume, if you take a deeper look, he's had success. We're going to remove the Peyton Manning part of his career because I think any offensive coach who had Peyton Manning is going to have success. But he's had success in a myriad of different ways. He had it with young quarterbacks, like looking at Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz was an MVP candidate when Frank Reich was his offensive coordinator. That's got to count to something of what Frank Reich's able to do. Andrew Luck was extremely successful. Andrew Luck won Comeback Player of the Year, had a career-high QBR when Frank Reich came over and was the Colts head coach, right? He's had success with Phillip Rivers, got Phillip Rivers at the very end of his career career, a lot of people didn't think Philip Rivers could throw the football anymore. He took that Colts team under Frank Reich to the playoffs. Like, you can go down the list here, that Frank Reich has had a lot of success with veteran quarterbacks, with young quarterbacks, mobile quarterbacks, quarterbacks who can't move at all like Philip Rivers. So his ability to adapt his offense and adapt his strategy to whatever the quarterback does best, I think is going to be pivotal. Whether Matt Corral develops into some kind of guy, whether they get a guy in the draft, whatever happens, Frank Reich seems to be the perfect fit to adjust the scheme to that player. And if I'm a Carolina Panthers fan, if you look at this roster, they've got a good defense. I think they've got a playoff defense. They got some guys on offense. They got some playmakers. I really like their younger offensive line. It was a lot better last year than it was in 2021. If they can get the quarterback position settled down and squared away, which I think Frank Reich is the right guy to do it, they are in a strong position, have a New York Giants, a Jacksonville Jaguars kind of resurgence going to next season. And if I'm a Panthers fan right now, I'm really excited with that proposition.